Stellar Life, mission log number 233.
We are sociologically sanctioned to fit in. We're all supposed to look like everyone else. We're all supposed to do it like everyone else. We watch television. Television tells us how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to think, what success is, what success isn't, what white people are, what black people are, all of that. And to live a spiritual life is to let your reality, your truth, come individually out of you. Your life comes through you. We are wired through our bodies, through our emotions, through our gut, to feel our soul. And it's as simple as when you do something that feels like it's bringing growth into your life, you have the pleasurable emotions of like, that feels good. And when you do something that's antithetical to your best interest, you have the agitating or the difficult emotions. So we are actually wired to feel what should receive our attention and focus.
Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Get inspired and live out loud. From love, freedom, and success to having it all. Here's your host, coach, speaker, and shining star, Orion.
Roger, you're looking good.
Hi, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. This is your host, Orion, and I'm super excited to introduce you to Mr. Jonathan Hammond. He's a teacher, energy healer, shamanic practitioner, and a spiritual counselor. Jonathan is a master teacher in shamanic Reiki, in Cherokee bodywork, in Ho'oponopono. He's a leader and a guide. He teaches classes and gives lectures in shamanism, in energy healing, spirituality, and Huna. And today we're going to talk about what is Huna. We're going to talk about his new book, Huna Wisdom to Change Your Life. This is a conversation that will fill your heart with joy and give you great tools, even some great ideas to take with you and implement throughout the day and just elevate your vibration and attract more of what you want throughout the day. Jonathan has worked alongside shamans in Mexico, Brazil, Bali, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and Hawaii. And today he's bringing you some of this extraordinary wisdom and he's sharing that with you. And now, without further ado, on to the show.
2, 1, 0.
Hi, Jonathan, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. It's good to have you here.
Aloha. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Before we begin, can you share a little bit about your passion and how did you get into shamanic healing?
Goodness. Well, I think like a lot of people who get on a spiritual path, they aren't feeling good. They aren't feeling happy and they're looking for new ways of being. And that was definitely me. I remember being about 20 years old, being in an airport terminal. And there was a book in one of those, airport bookstores. And the book was called Feeling Good. And it's not a book that I remember or anything. But I remember looking at that book and looking at the title and going, wow, that's an idea. I wonder what it would be like to feel that. And so that began a many-year, now almost 3-decade, not even almost, a 3-decade process of working with different spiritual modalities. Started off with Buddhism and then got very into energy healing. And things began to really hover around shamanism the last about 15 years. And that's really become my path. And the reason why shamanism has become my destination is shamanism is really about living on this earth, living well in a human body and really aligning with the sumptuous nature of what it is to be a human and what it is to live on the earth. And so that just felt like the right path for me.
That's beautiful. So what's the beginning of shamanism? I know this is like an ancient practice in several traditions, but how did it even start? Like, what was the role of the shaman?
There's a couple different questions there. Just to talk about shamanism for a second. So shamanism is about the reverence of nature. So in shamanism, we worship nature. So in the same way that Christians worship Christ or Buddhists worship Buddha, from a shamanic perspective, we're revering nature. Now, why would anyone revere anything? Because nature shows us who we are. Nature, if you look at nature, if you just behold nature, you sense vast interconnectivity, vast interdependence. The energy of nature is always moving towards growth and creation. Nature doesn't say no to itself. It doesn't turn on itself. It's just this spontaneous expression of love, you could even say. Nature just wants to keep going. And it's got everything that it needs to do that. And so we look at nature in order to emulate it. In other words, nature is a template that teaches us who we are, because we are each individually beings of nature. We are always, internally, if we allow ourselves to do this, we're always individually moving towards growth and creation. And individually, we are interconnected with everything and interdependent on everything. And everything around us, from a shamanic perspective, is assisting us in our own personal evolutionary growth and creation. That's the backbone of shamanism, what that is. And there are all kinds of ways in which you do that, and all kinds of practices and ways of thinking. And the shaman is the one who actually helps you do that better. The shaman is a healer of relationships, the relationship you have between the mind and your body, between yourself and other people, between others, and finally with everyone and the planet. So the shaman is the healer of relationships, so that we can get back to being in our natural self, which spontaneously is connected to everything and always leading towards growth and creation. So the shaman is trying to help you do that.
That's so beautiful. You did Buddhism, then you did Reiki, and then you felt compelled to take on the role of the shaman, more of a leader and a guide.
I mean, I don't call myself a shaman. I call myself a shamanic practitioner. I leave that for the real indigenous people, although I have worked with shamans on 3 different continents.
Wow. How was that?
That was amazing. It was amazing. What I found was, and what my book is about, is what I found in working with all these different shamans was that even if they were in Central America, South America, the Far East, Hawaii, that they all adhered to surprisingly similar worldviews and ways of thinking. And what I found out of the Polynesian tradition, out of the Hawaiian tradition, was that there was a shamanic philosophy that was the same philosophy that I saw with shamans that I worked with in Mexico, in Brazil, in Peru, Native American shamans, shamans from Bali. What I found was a philosophical system that comes out of Hawaii that a lot of people don't really know about, that helped me see, these are all the ways in which all the shamans that I've worked with, this is the way in which they all think. This is how they see life. And so my book, The Shaman's Mind, is about introducing people to that Huna, it's called Huna, that Huna philosophy, which is a shamanic philosophy, which is really nothing more than ways of thinking, ways of being, and actions that we take that help us live successfully. That's really what the Huna philosophy is. And many of the things in the Huna philosophy you've heard before, but I've never heard them exactly put so elegantly in one place. And they're so universally healing and so universally connected to manifestation, to magic, to healing, to growth. And they all come out of this place in the middle of the South Pacific.
Yeah, I love Hawaii. And I do want to get into what Huna is and the 7 principles and all that. But I'm just curious, have you ever tried plant medicine?
I did. I spent about 6 weeks in Brazil working with shamans there doing plant medicine. And that was very early on in my process. For me personally, that experience was as much about going into the jungle in Brazil by myself and dealing with the huge spiders and the brush fires and the darkness as it was about the plant medicine. It was, I think a lot of people who do plant medicine, particularly in another country, it's a sense of a kind of a whole pilgrimage. And the pilgrimage itself, in addition to the medicine, becomes part of their experience. That's just what I found. I had wonderful experiences on doing ayahuasca, some not so great experiences. And more than anything else, I think that it's an opener for people. I think it can open you to spiritual realms. But I think the paradigm of the person who spends 10 days going down there and that they're going to have their answers, that's not really how it works. What I found is that plant medicine is really most effective when you've really been doing work on yourself for an extended period of time. And then the plant medicine can help you integrate whatever it is that you've been working on.
So it just takes you from where you are to the next level and not to the next 10 levels like you want.
That's right. Like, I see with clients a lot of times where we've been working together for a year, really addressing habitual problems and habitual negative patterns and ways of being. they'll go and they'll have a mushroom ceremony, or they will, or they'll have ayahuasca, and they'll come back and they'll kind of say like, it's now integrated. I get it. I have a felt understanding of this now. So I've seen that a lot of times too. But it's not a magic. At least it wasn't for me. Just a magic bullet. We all have to be doing our work. That's just one step on that path.
Right. I spent some time with Taino and Lakota, and I did some sweat lodges a long time ago. I had the privilege to attend traditional sweat lodges, and I have not tried plant medicine, but just the experience of being so connected to the earth and nature, and the heat in the sweat lodge and the prayers, it was just so beautiful.
Well, and if you think about a sweat lodge or plant medicine, what are we talking about? We're talking about ways in which we facilitate an altered state of consciousness. So the shaman or a shamanic practitioner is entering into the hidden realms. So it's those realms on the sides of or underneath consensus reality. And that's what you're doing when you're going on a journey. And so entering a slightly altered state, which can happen from heat from the sweat lodge, can happen from plant medicine, can happen even from listening to monotonous drumming. There are a lot of different ways in which you can...
Breath work,
that's right. And you can enter into this light trance state. And in that, you're just bypassing the critical brain enough that you can enter into the dream state or into an imaginal state. And in that state, see, the imagination isn't something that isn't real. The imagination enters you into another reality. Mm-hmm. And it's in that reality that we can meet spirit guides, receive wisdom, retrieve lost power, go back in the past and really work on things that have happened to us and reframe them. And all that can happen in that altered state.
That's so beautiful. I like what you said about retrieving lost power, because I feel like a lot of people are losing their power these days. It's enough to listen to the news and listen to what's going on and see behind the lies to be a little worried. So how do you do this? How do you, if you or your client are in a place where you're not 100%, what do you do to go back to that center?
I think it's about understanding. And what I mean by that is that if you look at what's going on the planet right now, in the country right now, this is a time that has been prophesied by the Quechua people in the high Andes, by the Mayan people, by the Native American people. Even the Hindu Vedic scripture talk about this time on the planet. And all of these prophecies talk about a very difficult time on the planet where so many people would be infected with a kind of disease or parasite of the mind and spirit that would be born of a kind of toxic selfishness, separation from each other, hatred. And all these different prophecies talk about that while that would be a predominant energy, at the same time on the planet would be all of these souls who are incarnating, who would be part of the solution, the light workers, if you will, or the people who are here to battle. When I say battle, I don't mean anything fighting. I mean just their existence is battling this downward destructive energy with their aspiration. So this is a time where many things are falling and crumbling, but at the same time, there's this huge ascension going on. I've noticed even in the last 8 months, particularly since COVID started, that all my clients, and I'm talking hundreds of people, are actually not having an experience of extreme difficulty, even though they may have to adjust to the difficult times, but that people are really unfolding spiritually, and they are learning to step into how they can be a force of good, the solution makers on the planet. And that's very much going on right now.
Yeah, it's like they're in the melting pot, and you can see the gold shining.
That's right. And, I think it's so important. If you resonate with that, which is, it's going to be anyone who's listening to this podcast. If you resonate with that, you got to kind of claim your seat there and don't get overwhelmed by the side that is, and I'm going to say side because that sounds too political, but by the energies that are born of hatred, racism, separation, greed. Don't become too overwhelmed by them. Instead, stay in your lane and focus on what it is that you do want. Focus on why you're here and how you can individually in your own individual way contribute to the opposite of those destructive energies? How can you bring love and sharing and cooperation and awareness and ecological attention to your world, however you do that? And then you are individually doing your part. And at the same time, you are allowing yourself to enter into a reality where that is the reality that predominates in your world.
Right. When I see the world, I see it as a yin yang. There is the light and the darkness, and within the light there is darkness. Within the darkness there is light, and it's just like we are in this intense place where everything is heightened. The darkness is darker, but also the light is bigger. It's more magical. Like you said, that there are souls that came down to this earth to heal the planet, to help this intense occurrence. So if somebody is listening, how do they know if they are one of those souls?
I think you feel it. I think that there will be a sense of, I want to go in a certain direction and it doesn't really make sense to my friends or my family or society, but it still excites me anyway. And I want to go there. Or a sense of, I don't know that I'm in a job that really feels like I'm contributing in some way. Or I'm in a relationship where I can't grow. Or I'm in a geographical location that doesn't feel right for me. And there's a sense of, at this time, it's like there's this inner irritation to step into something. And whenever you feel that, whenever you feel a counterintuitive impulse to go in a direction that doesn't make sense but excites you anyway, that's the language of the soul. Always, that's the language of the soul. And the best thing you can do is really listen to that and legitimize that and really work on stopping worrying about what everyone thinks and fitting in and assimilating. We are sociologically sanctioned to fit in. We're all supposed to look like everyone else. We're all supposed to do it like everyone else. We watch television. Television tells us how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to think, what success is, what success isn't, what white people are, what black people are, all of that. And to live a spiritual life is to let your reality, your truth, come individually out of you. That you are wired for your soul's journey, not to assimilate with what everyone else expects you to be, which really has to do with economic enslavement. And so the more that you can follow that inner directionality, and that is so much of what the Huna Philosophy teaches, is that your life comes through you. We are wired through our bodies, through our emotions, through our gut, to feel our soul. And it's as simple as when you do something that feels like it's bringing growth into your life, you have the pleasurable emotions of like, that feels good. And when you do something that's antithetical to your best interest, you have the agitating or the difficult emotions. So we are actually wired to feel what should receive our attention and focus. And when we allow ourselves to feel our feelings and feel that, we actually, and to do it uneditorialized. So we're going to do it even if mom and dad doesn't agree with it, boyfriend doesn't agree with it, whatever. If you allow yourself to feel your feelings, you're wired to find that inner directionality. And it's not outside of you, and it's not on television, and it's definitely not on Instagram. It comes from you.
Yes, that's powerful. I mean, we always look for the answers outside. No, we don't always, but we often look for answers outside of ourselves. So we need to be reminded or remember that everything comes from the inside. Everything we need is inside us.
That's right. Like a pandemic concern in this contemporary culture is, what does everyone think? And it screws up everything. It screws up everything, because to live a spiritual life is to follow your own inner directives and have faith in invisible forces.
Yes.
And so to pull away from that is to find your own individual truth.
Right. Dr. Wayne Dyer, who used to live in Maui, used to say that what other people think is their business.
Yes, I love that. And my Hawaiian teacher, Serge King, who so much of this wisdom comes from, he says, I never get disappointed in anyone, because people are always going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah. And for me, throughout my life, I was a rebel, and I did a lot of things that people disagreed with or thought I was completely crazy, like having my first trip outside of Israel to be going to Japan with $700 in my pocket.
Sure.
and people scared me and they said that I won't survive and everything's going to be so bad. And actually, it was one of the best things that I've ever done. And I planned a trip for 3 weeks and I ended up staying for 3.5 years. And I met a wonderful guy there. And it was, I learned a lot. I traveled a lot. It was amazing. And throughout my life, so many times I did that over and over again. Because you have to follow your intuition. You have to follow your inner voice. And sometimes your inner voice is softer. It's quieter than the loud noises outside.
That's right. That's right.
Let's go through the principles in a small summary. What is Huna and what are the principles?
Sure. So Huna is a shamanic philosophy, so ways of thinking, and it's a lot of things, but the foundation of it is based on 7 ideas. 7 ideas that if you can integrate and adopt and use in your life, you will enter into how shamans think. So the reason why I called my book The Shaman's Mind is because I found in these 7 principles that if you adhere to them and you follow them, you are entering into and seeing through the lens of how shamans think. So that's what that philosophy is. So the first principle, and these principles are based on 7 Hawaiian words that have unique translations from my teacher, Serge Kahili King. So the first principle, I won't give you the Hawaiian, I'll just give you the English translation, is that the world is what you think it is. The world is what you think it is. So what that means is not just that your experience of the world will be based on how you think about it, but that the world itself, that reality itself, will shift and change based on how you think about it. So that means that you are in a co-creative relationship based on what's going on between your ears with the world. So if you think of reality as a blank canvas onto which we project our internal experience, and that blank canvas shifts and changes ever so slightly based on what we project on it. So we are creating reality. So right now, like what's going on the planet is because so many people's internal experience is mired in negativity, fear, anger, separation, all those things. And that is being projected onto that canvas of reality.
So you can have your own reality within the global reality.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. If you go to a Trump rally, that's a reality. That's real. In the same way that, I'll use this example a lot. If you are going to take a walk in the forest and you think I'm going to take a walk in the forest, you'll take a walk in the forest. But if you think I'm going to take a walk in the forest because I want the forest to speak to me and give me an answer to a question that I need an answer to in my life, that forest, because you've created that reality, will start talking to you if you take that walk. So we're creating individual realities all of the time. And that's what that first principle is getting at.
I took a walk in the park the other day and it wasn't a forest, it was a park. But I felt everything vibrating. It happened to me a few times, like moments of awakening where you feel the vibration, you feel the energy. It's like the air is moving. I can't even explain it. Everything is more heightened.
That's right. From a shamanic perspective, shamanism is an animistic cosmology. Animism means that there is a sense that everything is alive, everything is conscious, everything is sentient. And Huna takes it a step further and says that everything can relate to our thoughts. And so when you go into nature with the presumption that not only can I relate to the trees, but that they can relate to my thoughts, you will start having that experience. Well, that seems sort of far-fetched. Just to go back to ayahuasca is made from the bark of one tree up to a certain part of another plant. And at a certain point, the shamans who created ayahuasca journeyed to these different plants. And of the plants told them, you need a little bit of me, you need a little bit of me, you need and like that's how they did it. And the plants were speaking to them. And we can all come back to that. We can all come back to that. And that is what it is to be a shamanic practitioner. It's very childlike and imaginative. And so I really invite everyone to just start thinking about things in that way.
I like what you said, childlike. I think we need more childlike in this world. We need more play. We need more wonder.
Yeah, when you talk about like invisible worlds that the shaman enters into, spirit guides, imaginary friends, playing with drums and rattles, these are like we did this, power animals. We had teddy bears. I mean, this is like we all had our version of this when we were children, And children are really on to something, but then we're socialized out of it. And so to practice shamanism is to come back to something that is actually real.
Yes. I have a 1-year-old. He's the cutest thing on the planet. And just seeing the world through his eyes, and just like he's looking at a clock and he's like, clock! He's like,
Yeah, that's right.
dog!
Right. Love it. Yeah.
Everything is so beautiful and new and wonderful. And if we can go back to this sense of wonder and beauty and appreciation. And what I love the most about him is how I am with him. I'm more like a child. I play more. I sing to him. We dance together. It is so beautiful and so real.
Well, and just to say this too, we won't get into it in this conversation, but there's an aspect of the self, which you might call the unconscious mind. In the Hawaiian tradition, we call it the ku, or I won't give all the Hawaiian names, but essentially it's the part of us that mimics, and it responds to pleasure. And so when we are in relationship with someone or something that is experiencing pleasure, there is a part of us that naturally mimics that pleasure.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and so that's the reason why when you're with a child who's really in joy, and you start, there is a part of you that actually mimics that joy, and the same can be true for if there's a seed of anger in there, even if it's not in yourself, that's not even necessarily activated. If you're around an angry person, this unconscious body mind, it mimics, and that anger will come out in a different way. So it's just something to be aware of.
Science proved that when two people are coming together, we create the same neuroconnection patterns in our brain. We can also form the same ideas, the same patterns of the same ideas.
That's right. And, neuroscience and the quantum sciences and all that, they're saying all the things that the shamans have always said. They just have different ways of saying it, and it's now verifiable. And the 7 principles are so based on the quantum realities, for sure.
The first one is the world is how we create it.
The world is what you think it is. The world is so what goes on between your ears creates reality.
Got it.
The second principle says there are no limits. So what that means is that separation is merely an illusion. So just like if you think of a forest and you think that it is the water and the air and the root systems and the plant life and the animal life are all working together, that there is no separation between any of those things. So you might think of yourself as an individual wave in an ocean that can't separate yourself from the whole ocean. So we are all part of only one great happening. And we each individually experience that one happening through the individual aperture of ourselves. But we cannot separate ourselves from the great happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so what this principle is getting at is that anything that you do that feeds you, that heals you, that brings you joy, that essentially that has a direct and substantive effect on the all, because we're not separate from the all. My teacher, Serge, he says, if you want to heal someone, think of them and you feel good.
Mm.
That's how connected we are. So that's what that principle. The third principle says energy flows where attention goes. So what that means is that where we place our focus and attention with consistency, elicit an energetic response from the universe that will bring to us the nearest physical equivalent of whatever we're placing our focus and attention on. If you focus on fear, you're creating an energetic current that's bringing you more fear. You're focusing on love, you're creating an energetic current that's bringing you more love. If you're focusing on writing a book on Huna, which I just did, you're eliciting all the creative energies that help you write a book on Huna. So where you place your focus and attention, elicit energy, creative energy. And that's really big, because it's really saying that the power of your focus and attention is energy work, is actually the beginnings of energy work, and that the universe symbiotically will support us by giving us some of its energy based on where we place our focus and attention.
Right.
Pretty big idea.
Yeah. Tony Robbins talks about changing your state, and he talks about you change it through your focus, your physiology, and your language. So you change it you can change your physiology. You can walk, you can just move your body, and then you can just mind your words, the words you tell to yourself in your own mind and the words you tell to yourself about yourself or about the situation to other people. And then, like you said, what you focus on is the most important thing.
That's right. I often talk about Huna Philosophy being almost annoyingly empowering because it really says that it all comes out of you and it doesn't let you off the hook. It really says that you have the power to create whatever it is that you want, and you have the power to say no to whatever it is that you don't want. And that's what this philosophy is getting at.
And you want to master your energy because your energy flows where your attention goes.
That's right. And it's your energy, and it's the energy of the universe. If you think of the energy of nature, there's something that's moving the tides and growing the trees and beating your heart. That energy, that creative energy, that's underneath everything, is elicited by us individually wherever we place our focus and attention. So the next principle is now is the moment of power. Now is the moment of power. So we know from mindfulness, and that's such a big idea now, the idea of putting your attention in the present moment. What this principle is getting at is that now is the moment of power, because now is the only place where you can access power, because now is the only place where you can do anything. And so this is saying that who you think you are right now is who you are. And we are all carrying around our wounds and our stories and our memories, and they are infiltrating our now and telling us who we are. But what this principle is saying is that in any given moment, you can start over. Because
if you are in your story, you're not in the now.
That's right. That's right. In fact, in the Hawaiian language, there are no past tenses or future tenses. So everything in the Hawaiian language relates to the now. So in Hawaiian, a sentence like, I went to the store yesterday to buy milk, is translated in Hawaiian as, my having gone to the store yesterday to buy milk is now over. Or a sentence like, I'm going to the beach next week to go snorkeling, becomes, my having gone to the beach next week hasn't happened yet. Everything relates to the present moment. There's only the now. It's really about harnessing the power to do something. So that's what that principle is getting at. Serge once said, my teacher, he said, a mystic might want to abide in the now, but a shaman wants to do something with it. And that's the fundamental difference. The next principle is aloha, and you've all heard that if you know anything about Hawaii. And that just means that love's perspective is always present. So we think of love as the only ethic. So what we're looking for is that every action we take, every thought that we think, everyone that we invite into our life is love's perspective present. Because when we are operating with the idea that we want love to be present, we are following the energy of nature, because something is making nature want to constantly experience more of itself. And why would the forest want to experience more of itself? What would be that intention? Love, celebration. And so the idea is that we are always looking that love and happiness be part of what it is that we're doing. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes love means you put up a boundary. Sometimes love means you have to leave a difficult situation. But the idea is that we're always looking to know that perspective is always present. That's that principle. The next one is mana, which means all power comes from within. All power comes from within. So this goes back to stopping worrying about what everyone thinks, because it all comes out of you. So if there's only one great thing happening, if there's only an infinitely powerful universe, and that infinite power converges at the point that you call you, which means I have all the power and you have all the power, which means I have the authority to create my life as I see fit. And the word mana, the word that this principle comes from, is translated as authority. And when you think of the word authority, the word author is in there. So we author our lives. We individually have the power to author our lives. And even things outside of us that seem to have power over us only have power over us if the authority within us granted those things to have power over us. So that's that principle. And the last one is effectiveness is the measure of truth. Effectiveness is the measure of truth, which means it's true if it works. And if it doesn't work, it's not true. So that means that that truth is highly individual, and it's only based on whether or not it's effective for you.
That's so true.
That's right. That's right. It's so empowering because it's also saying, what I love about the Huna philosophy is saying, here's this philosophy from the middle of the South Pacific, from the middle of Polynesia, that says, we don't even have the answers. We're just telling you that the answer is out there, and that keep being creative until you find a truth that works for you. So this last principle is really about flexibility. It's saying anything is possible if you can figure out how to do it. In the book, I go into these in much more detail, and there are exercises and ways in which you can work with them and integrate these ideas into your life. But when you are really, really integrating these ideas, it's absolutely amazing what happens, because you just all of your energy just gets on your own team. And it's like you're using your mind and your body and your spirit in accord with each other to create whatever it is that you want.
That's wonderful. Jonathan, how can people find you, read your book, work with you?
Sure. So the book is called The Shaman's Mind, Huna Wisdom to Change Your Life. And you can get that on Amazon or wherever books are sold. You can find me really easy, jonathanhammond.com, JONATHANHAMMOND.com. I'm currently in New York City for about another 3 months, and then I'm making a big move to Maui, and I'll be on Maui, but I certainly see people virtually as well. You can certainly find me virtually. If you happen to be in New York, come see me in person, or certainly in Maui as well.
Wow. Jonathan, thank you so much. This was extraordinary. I really appreciate our conversation, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people.
Great. Thank you. Mahalo.
Thank you for joining me on my mission to light people up and change lives around the world. I hope today's conversation inspires you to step up, go after the life of your dreams, and be who you want to be. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go to stellarlifepodcast.com for show notes, transcripts, and other cool stuff. And please subscribe, review, and help spread the word by sharing us on Facebook and Twitter. Have a lovely day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.